Okay, it looks like we are live. KC, how are you today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I want to welcome everybody for joining us today. My name is Scott Fuller, founder of leavingthebayarea.com, and you are tuning into our Market Insider series where every week we travel the country visiting some of the more popular places that we are seeing Bay Area residents relocate to. Super stoked today. We are traveling south. We're going to Dallas, Texas. And my
Absolutely.
guest today is KC McKeown with eXp Realty. KC, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'm looking forward to getting some great information. If you haven't joined one of these webinars before, we're going to cover a lot of content and what I hope to be 45 minutes. It's going to be everything from housing to employment to recreation, climate, a lot of different things. We're going to try to get as much info in as possible. We've got a couple ways you can communicate with us. We'd love to keep this interactive. If you have any questions, there's a Q&A window that you can raise your hand and ask a question. We'll answer those live. There's also a chat feature where you can chat, and we'll answer those questions live as well. So feel free to keep the questions coming in. And KC, so again, you are the expert in Dallas. Tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in Dallas, because we're talking to a lot of people who are maybe considering going to Dallas. You've been there and done that, so I think your info is going to be really helpful to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Being prior military, I'm actually from Washington State originally, lived in California, the southern part of California, down in San Diego for the military, and in grad school is actually what took me to Texas. Not originally Dallas. I've kind of lived a couple areas for college, as well as lived in San Antonio. Eventually wound up in Dallas, kind of where I wanted to be, and I've been here for a decent amount of time now, but definitely not your traditional individual who's born and raised in Dallas. So I've seen what it's like to live in other states and other cities,
Yeah.
and I can tell you first and foremost, Dallas is where it's at.
And sometimes it's good to have that background, right? Because like you said, some people are born and raised somewhere. They love where they're at, but they may not have anything else to compare it to. So it's like you coming from the military, having a background of seeing a lot of places, gives you a lot of ways to compare.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I was kind of settling down in terms of where I wanted to end up, I knew it was somewhere in Texas, and I had my sights on Dallas. Things just didn't work out initially to where I was in Dallas from the get-go, but I did get here, and I'm going to be staying. So.
Yeah, you're there for good. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit. So as far as your business, now we have, again, we talk to a lot of people in a lot of different areas across the country. I'm sure you work with quite a few people who are relocating out of state into the Dallas area. What percentage of people that either you work with or you see coming into the area would you say, or people buying houses are coming from out of the Dallas area?
So actually, relocation is a big part of my business. I do help folks from all over the country. Actually, just helped a Marine move from Spain to Texas.
Wow.
So helping people from even outside the country move to Texas. But I do get a lot of folks that are obviously moving for jobs. Probably say about 90% of relocations to our area are job related. Obviously, there's other circumstances that come into play as well in terms of everything that's offered here. Obviously, cost of living is substantially low here comparatively to all your other big metroplexes in the country. And a lot of that is, as you're broadcasting here live today, a lot of it is coming from California.
Yeah, and is that Southern and Northern California, or you're seeing more people coming from SoCal?
Yeah, so one of the ones that I'm going to be speaking about in terms of houses today in a particular location in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that I see a lot of growth in. That individual was actually moving from. So I was stationed in Pendleton, which is about 45 minutes north of San Diego, and I was actually helping them move from the Oceanside area, which is about 45 minutes north of San Diego, to North Fort Worth. So
got it. And so the people that you're, what's that?
It's probably a mix of just not necessarily a lot of Northern California, but definitely Southern and Central California. I get a lot of folks moving.
And we'll talk a little bit more into detail when we get into kind of the industry and the employment. There's a lot of companies who are moving, their employees there. Absolutely. So some of the areas that we talk about, we represent, it's maybe more of a retirement destination. sounds like Dallas might be a little bit less of a retirement destination and maybe a little bit more of people are going there looking for, new job opportunities. Is that fair to say?
Well, there's going to be, because I actually have helped a handful of folks that have retired out of the Dallas area and are still staying in the Dallas area. They're just moving from the area that they're in to a 55 and up community.
Got it. Okay.
And we do have a handful of those. And obviously the size of our metroplex, you're going to have folks that are retiring in the area for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, good. Well, let's dive into this. I think what people are really interested in learning about, myself included, is if you are cashing out of California, and let's say you've built up a certain amount of equity over time, got maybe $500,000 or $600,000 to work with, that you're taking with you to Dallas. What is that going to get you? So give us maybe some examples of how far is that going to go? Am I going to have to get a mortgage? Can I buy something cash? What are my options?
So, before I moved to Texas, I lived for the majority of the time I lived in Seattle and I lived in Southern California. I never really had any visions of owning a home. Obviously, I was in my early to mid 20s and still in college and starting my career, but owning a home was just not something that was ever even considered. Now moving to Texas, for the most part, outside of certain areas of the larger metroplexes and, maybe one particular city, the cost of living here is just, substantially lower for what you're getting. If you're sitting on $500,000 to $600,000 in equity and you're moving from California, you can honestly, you can get just about anything and everything you want. Obviously there's going to be homes that have a much higher price range than that. But I do know, and you're the expert in San Francisco. You can, tell me what you can get in San Francisco for $500,000 to $600,000 versus here, you're getting.
So the answer is nothing.
Here you can get, your turnkey 2 or 3 year old home that's 3,000 square feet, 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, in one of the nicest school districts in the entire state of Texas.
Awesome. And I know that you're gonna kind of talk about some of the higher growth areas, more popular communities. Let's get into that a little bit about what's popular there and what can you get for the price.
Yeah, so it's tough to say in North Texas in terms of narrowing down just one area that is growing faster than other areas, because honestly there's more growth in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as a whole than it's probably in the top 3 areas in the country in terms of most growth. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and jump over to a map and kind of just run through
awesome
Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex just to give people that are watching a little bit better of an idea. So we're looking here at the entire Metroplex here of Dallas-Fort Worth. A lot of the growth, as you can see here on the map itself, you don't see much up in the Justin North Lake area. Obviously, you can see it's a little lighter here. However, in the north side of Dallas, it's all dark up until you hit about Prosper. And I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit. Growth has basically stopped in terms of North Frisco and Prosper. Anything around this 380 freeway here. The only downside to 380 is it's not an interstate. It's not like a tollway where you've got Dallas North Tollway here. You've got Interstate 35. All of those are pretty well developed. 35 is trying to get there. 380 has everything around 380 has built up so fast that it's trying to play catch up essentially. So at this point, growth is really in the north side of Frisco and anything along this 380 corridor, especially in Prosper. Prosper is growing substantially in terms of growth. I mean, you're talking about it's almost doubled, more than doubled since 2014. So, in the last 5 years, the city itself is more than doubled. Average price point in this city, Prosper, it's going to be a little bit higher end. You're going to be looking at price point in the low to mid 400s. Frisco, obviously, I'm sure if people are looking in the north side of Texas, they've definitely heard of Frisco. Frisco at one point, if not still, was the fastest growing city in the entire country. So you've got Frisco. Actually, in Frisco, there is a retirement community that I'll be going into a little bit later as well. Then on the Fort Worth side of things, if you scoot over here to Fort Worth hasn't grown out as far as north. Obviously, this is 380 right here. This is really country. There's nothing built out here yet, but if you go along 380 and you see the Dallas side of things, it's completely being built out and built out further. My guess over the next 10 to 20 years is your north side of Dallas is going to be just like your north side of Fort Worth in terms of growth. But right now you're seeing a lot of growth in Roanoke. Roanoke is one of the better areas of North Fort Worth. You hit South Lake, Grapevine, Coppell right here are going to be your probably these three school districts right here, Grapevine, Colleyville ISD, South Lake ISD, and Coppell ISD are going to be your top three probably of the 5 school districts in the entire state of Texas. Obviously, cost of living is going to be quite higher here. Roanoke's great as well, though. Roanoke has a little bit lower price point in terms of comparatively to Prosper. You're probably looking in the 300s, 3 to mid 3s in terms of average home value. With that being said, I'm going to show you a house today that's much higher than that, but you'll be able to see what your money can get you.
So if you're basically a family who's moving there for a job and you have kids and you're saying we want something that's going to be in a good school district, you can get in some of those areas and you can be able to get some $300,000 to $400,000 in a good school district.
Yeah. So there's me. I didn't go too much into detail, obviously being prior military and being in the Marine Corps myself. I actually started teaching in Dallas. That was my first job. So school districts, I'm very well rounded in terms of what school districts, obviously myself, I had to teach at them as well.
Right.
I taught at Coppell ISD, which was one of the better districts in the state. It was a great opportunity. I was just given a better opportunity to pursue real estate. But, your top tier school districts, I mean, you can get in for low 300s in terms of a good
awesome
house. And get you in a great school district for, even maybe high 200s in the North Fort Worth area. So you're definitely, a lot of bang for your buck for sure in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Awesome.
And in terms of, we're going to jump back here on the maps here, just one other area I wanted to kind of jump on. So jumping over to the Dallas area. So in terms of affordability, a lot of people that are coming into town are working downtown. So initially we had a lot of growth in McKinney. McKinney's about as far north as growth has happened in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A lot of people are realizing that McKinney to downtown with traffic is over an hour. So they want to get closer to downtown. And within the 635 loop, if you're working downtown, the 635 loop is definitely a normal commute. And by normal commute in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're talking 15 to 30 minutes, not.
So just to have fun with us,
yeah,
an hour commute, which I assume is rush hour, that's considered a long commute. Is that right?
Yes. People are moving over an hour commute.
It's all relative, right, KC? So I'm just looking at this and I'm going, okay, that's probably an average commute here and maybe pretty good for an average commute here. So
which is why a lot of the out-of-state buyers were buying in McKinney, and then they realized that and you can still get a lot of house in McKinney, but you can probably get a similar. It's just going to be an older home. Near the 635 loop, you're going to cut your commute by 2/3, and you're going to have a lot more proximity to everything. Not that there's anything wrong with the 380 corridor in McKinney and Frisco up here, because there absolutely is plenty to do up there. But if you're working closer to downtown, a lot of people are trying to be within the 635 loop, which, you're hitting Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Addison, Richardson area. It's getting less and less affordable. And, when I'm saying affordable in North Texas, it's much different than, California. But this 635 loop, you're getting a lot of people that are coming in here and completely renovating homes and turning them around and selling them for, your 3s and 4s, which are, what people are wanting to be at just because of location. So,
yeah. Give us some. I know that you had some examples of some properties in a couple of those different areas of what can you get for what price and square footage and that sort of thing.
So I kind of explained a little bit in terms of the areas, and I'll jump over to kind of pictures, and I'll jump from pictures to the map so people can kind of correlate where the pictures are coming from in relative to the map. So we're going to jump over here to the first house that I have that I actually mentioned before. These four pictures are actually out of Roanoke. So this house, this individual was moving from an area, Oceanside, California, like I was mentioning before, a little bit north of San Diego. They were coming from an older home, had a significant amount of equity, but they were in an area, I think they sold their house for probably $700, and they were looking to move to the area for work. But where they were at, just, rough school districts, it was close to the ocean, which was nice, but definitely was nowhere near the stature of this home. So this house is the front here. You got your open living space, came with a game room. Total stats on this, you're talking 3,000 square feet, a 4-bedroom, 3.5. It did have a 3-car garage, as you can see here. HOA is pretty standard in a lot of the communities here in the suburbs, but you're talking a very reasonable HOA of about $600 a year. So still very reasonable. On top of the 4 bedrooms, you actually have, like I said, a whole game room and an office. So technically, whatever way you want to look at it, could be up to 6 bedrooms.
It's a lot of room, some very usable space.
Absolutely. So this, I'm going to jump back over to the map here and show you. I know I mentioned where Roanoke was, but to give you an idea, so this house over in Roanoke was in probably one of the nicer communities in Roanoke, and it was under $500,000. They purchased it for $495,000. So they were still able.
$495,000. Okay.
And
that looks like a newer home, right? Really good condition. Looks newer. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 3 years old. They were able to move to a 3-year-old home. I think their house in California was built in the 80s, and it was, not necessarily in the best condition, but they had plenty of equity to purchase this house here. I think they bought it. I believe they used a majority of their equity, and then were able to still, pocket, 6 figures from the purchase of from the sale of their house in California. So, in terms of position with, cost of living and what they're able to move in here, it's been, a blessing for them.
Yeah.
So, gonna jump back over to the next set of pictures here. And this next house is actually in Frisco. I was a listing agent on this house. An individual was actually moving out of a retirement facility to an assisted living facility. Help the son sell his father's house. This is going to be a significant amount less in terms of price point, but you're still getting in a very private gated community up in Frisco. The name of this is actually Frisco Lakes by Del Webb. So these two pictures.
Okay. So that's the 55 plus Del Webb community in Frisco.
Yeah. So this was a 55 and up community. In terms of the community itself, most of the houses, including this one, in retirement communities are 2 bedrooms. So you have 2 bedrooms and an office typically. And this is running you a little over 300. So, not nearly as much as the house that we just saw in Roanoke. But you're not, and obviously in this picture, you're not backing up to the golf course, but this is a private golf course community with a clubhouse, restaurant and bar, pro shop. You've got a clubhouse that's over 28,000 square feet. So there's a lot there to do. And location wise, I'll show you on the map where that is, as well as where another community is. So over up in the Frisco Lakes area, you're really going to be in almost Little Elm, but you're going to be over essentially this side of Frisco is where Frisco Lakes is going to be. And again, it's a 55 and up community. Great place to be in terms of location. A lot of people do retire there, but still have family and friends in the area that they want to stay close to. Frisco is very central for a lot of families up in the suburbs. So being able to retire in the Frisco area is convenient for a lot of retirees. And they're still building new construction in the area. So you do have the option to go that route as well.
I was going to ask you about that. So Frisco's obviously, we hear that, that name quite a bit. And how many units do you know? How many units there are in that particular Del Webb?
Not roughly off the top of my head. You're probably talking high hundreds. It'd be pushing it to say thousands, but a pretty decent sized community of probably 600 homes, and they're still building, so it's tough to say,
Yeah.
when they're
So you
built.
can buy resale in there. You could probably buy new construction. And then what's the general price range? If somebody's looking at it saying, because obviously Del Webb is one of the more popular, communities in most cities, what type of price ranges are we looking at from like maybe the condo and townhome up to, the higher end single families?
Yeah, so this was actually this home that that I sold was one of the earlier homes in the community, and initially they built some really, really high end luxury. Just the everything about the house was higher end. So you're ranging probably on houses similar to this, mid 300s. But they're also building some pretty basic, homes for people to retire in. People don't necessarily need, if they're in a golf course community, they don't necessarily need, and most of these houses are being bought cash. So there are some homes definitely in the 200s as well, and there's I probably start mid to high 200s and range all the way up to your 4s and 5s.
Yeah. So there's really something for every budget. And a lot of people, especially retirees, they're coming in saying, we don't want something that's 2,500 square feet.
Exactly.
We want less, right, to
Yeah,
take care of and to maintain. And so,
This one was roughly 1,900 square feet. So it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with an office. So it's still a good size for a retired couple to move in. And it's not 3,000 square feet like the house in Roanoke that I was just going over.
Show us the other properties. I think you had a couple other properties.
Yeah. So we'll jump back over here. All right. So scrolling down here a little bit more, I did want to say these are renderings that just came out this week of PGA Golf. So PGA Golf has actually bought over 2,000 acres in the north side of Frisco that cusps that 380 corridor that I was speaking of. Mm-hmm. Over the next 10 to 20 years, this is essentially what they're hoping to get in terms of a whole new community. Obviously, this is just all land right now. They're talking over 2,000 acres, and it's going to be multi-use, commercial, residential. This is going to be
plenty of golf courses, I would assume.
Oh yeah. It's going to have an enormous amount of golf courses for sure with PGA Golfs. And to give you another idea of where we're looking at. So again, it's over here. This whole area, you can see that roads are being built out right here. There's a little bit of empty space here that doesn't really have much. Right before you hit 380, you can see that smaller roads here are already built out. This entire area, there's nothing, just land. It's about 2,000 acres, and that's where PGA Golf's going to have its headquarters, as well as many championships to come in the next decade or two. So did want to share that, but jumping
that sounds
back,
like a pretty awesome project. I mean, that's a large scale.
It's gonna be the long haul for sure. And then I do have a couple more pictures down here. This is what a lot of downtown is doing. So downtown, as you can see, this house right here on the right-hand side is probably built in the 20s, early 1900s, probably 20s, 1920, 1930. And individuals are basically buying land, tearing down these old houses and building these new modern townhomes. This one in particular has 4 townhomes. You do have your entry garage below, and this gives you an idea of what you're looking at. It's about 2,000 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and this is running you about 500 or 525.
But did you say this is closer? So this example here, and just the differences between those two builds are absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
but it makes sense, and I think we see that in a lot of cities, including in the Bay Area, because the land is so valuable now, especially close to the city centers, that you're going to build up and you're going to make get as many units out of it as possible. But that's incredible. How far away is this from like downtown Dallas?
So this is on the east side of Dallas. It's a pretty popular area called Lower Greenville. It's pretty popular for folks in the in their late 20s to late 30s. Definitely still plenty of people that live downtown. Obviously, for proximity, location, everything's great. There's so much to do, but you do have a little bit younger population in terms of downtown. This is on the east side of downtown, so you can still, like I said, in Lower Greenville, where it's still very affordable. If we're going to jump back onto the map here and talk just a little bit about the downtown areas. So where I'm talking about, actually, I'll show. So Lower Greenville is actually this little area on the east side of Dallas. Once you head west of 75, you're going to hit Highland Park, University Park, and Preston Hollow up here. This is going to be, a substantially different price point. Some of these areas, you may not be able to buy a house for under $1 million. So that's your much higher price point in terms of your Dallas-Fort Worth area. And to jump back, to give you an idea, some people, they hate the look of what's going on downtown. They hate the idea that these old, charming houses are being bought, and, because on that picture is actually going to have, in theory, that small plot of land could have, 4 couples with, 8 people with kids. So you could have on that small plot of land, you could have, 8 adults with kids running around, and it's going to highly populate the downtown area. But there are still homes that are built. For instance, this one is built, this was an actually 1930s build, but just kept up really, really well. And
that's a really good looking home.
Yeah. It's same area, charm. It still has all the charm of your early 1900s home, and has been obviously renovated and kept up very, very well. So there still is plenty of homes that are similar to this, where, you're just getting people coming in and refreshing them rather than tearing them down and building up. This one, the last one we looked at up here, went a little too far. Obviously your backyard is essentially non-existent. In a home like this, your standard traditional single family home, you're still going to get your yard near downtown. So
KC, a question for you, because they always say everything is bigger in Texas, right?
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, driving the few times that I've driven through Dallas, is some of these homes are unbelievably huge. And so we talk about in the Bay Area how you have these mansions. The Bay Area does not have the type of homes that Dallas has. But my question for you is, are these, when they're building new construction, are they kind of, building them in, filling in lots, 0 lot lines, or are they building still large, extravagant homes, semi-custom or custom homes? What's the trends that you're seeing right now?
So it's going to be community to community. You're going to have a lot of communities that are with these big builders that they're building, or they're buying these large plots of land and throwing as many homes onto a small parcel lot as possible. But with that comes affordability too. I had someone near the 380 corridor that was able to buy a brand new 2018 home last year for low 200s, a brand new home. And still a decent sized backyard where, you can have your pets, your dogs running around in the backyard. Still a very livable house I think you bought it for $238 for a brand new home. On the flip side of things, if you're wanting to build, or if you're wanting to find a custom home, with acreage, I did help another individual who was able to buy a brand new home on 2 acres of land for mid 300s. Granted, that was a little bit further out in the country. If you wanted something like that, closer to, it's all relative. If you want it closer to the city and you want acreage, or if you want a decent amount of land, it's going to cost you. But
you're going to pay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But
tell us a little bit about kind of what's going on, because I want to get through the home stuff, but we've got a lot more stuff to cover. I want to make sure we get through everything. Tell us about what the home price trends are, as far as what's the average days on market. I know that's going to differ, in areas and communities. But what are you seeing as the average days on market for a home that's priced correctly?
So obviously it's relative to the area. In terms of closer to Fort Worth, or closer to downtown Fort Worth, or closer to downtown Dallas, if it's priced well, it will go fast. Most homes around here, if they're priced well, they'll go fast. Average days on market, you're looking about 30, 35 to 40 right now. We are seeing a little bit of a slowdown, especially in the higher priced homes. But still, we're seeing so much growth here. It seems like every single week another large corporate business is moving their headquarters here.
Yeah, absolutely.
The growth here is substantial. And it's just everything combined. You don't have any state income tax. You don't have Property taxes are a little high here, but when you're comparing it to the house values, you're getting a lot of house here for your money, and the jobs are still paying well here too.
So what's that threshold? You said when you get into the higher price range, because obviously in every area you're going to say, for example, up to $400,000, there could be multiple offers. The time on market could be 2 to 3 weeks, and then above that, it might be longer. What is that threshold price right there?
Yeah, so anything under 200 will go. It'll go the first weekend. Multiple offers. I had one house that sold for slightly over 200. We had 11 offers in the first 3 days. Once you get into your mid to high 200s, early 300s, if it's priced well, it should still sell relatively quickly as well, substantially lower than your 35 days on market on average. When you start to see a little bit of a slowdown is your mid 3s to starting 4s. Is when you see stuff, and I'm showing an active buyer right now near kind of the downtown area, Lower Greenville area that I was speaking of earlier. I'm showing him homes in the, low to mid 400s, and, trying to get him to understand that just because it's been on the market for 3 weeks doesn't mean it's not priced well. It's just, you're going to have a much smaller buyer pool in your 400s.
Yeah.
Than you're going to have in your entry level 200s, because there's a lot more buyers, trying to bid on a house in that price range than in the 400s.
So you touched on something that I know a lot of people ask about, and obviously this is the big pull for not only companies but also individuals looking at Texas, is the tax situation. So obviously the state income tax rate in Texas is 0, but we all know that not everything comes for free, right? And so they make up for that in the property taxes. Tell us a little bit about what obviously there's a variance in property taxes, but those are typically higher than what we would see in the Bay Area. What do those property taxes typically look like across the board?
So it is going to vary. It's all going to be all going to be based off the assessed value of the house. So depending on the area of the house, for instance, one of my properties just doubled in value on the assessed value, so my taxes are going up, close to $250.
So it was reassessed recently?
Yeah, it was reassessed this past year, and the area, again, has another huge, large commercial, multi-billion-dollar complex that's basically got the okay and is starting to be rebuilt. And the city's taking that into consideration. So my tax assessed value almost doubled. So my taxes are going up about $250 a month on that property. But on average, it's going to be based on
a percentage. What type of percentage are we talking about?
2.3 to 2.8 usually.
Okay.
And it'll be off the assessed value, obviously, of the house.
And to give people in California a comparison, I should say at least the Bay Area, we're running around 1.25%, maybe up to 1.5%. There could be some assessments or Mello-Roos or different things like that. But on the flip side, California is known. We have the highest state income tax rate in the country, which goes between 7.25% and 12.3% at the highest rate. So again, if you're looking at your overall financial picture and your total tax picture, it's a big difference, So you guys make up for a little bit on on the property taxes side, but certainly, with no state income taxes, there's, that could be an advantage. Real quick, I want to, we had a question about the weather, which I promise we will get to that. We'll talk about the weather. How about, what's your sales tax there?
Sales tax, 6.25. Yeah, I believe it's 6.25 on sales tax here.
Okay, and I think we're a couple percent higher. We're more around 8.25% here. And then what are you paying for a gallon of gas? Since Texas has a whole bunch of oil, right?
It's actually
cheaper.
No, I think we're actually at it's with the state and local tax. I think we're around 8 as well. So combined, I think we're close to about the same.
Oh, a gallon of gas. What are you paying for a gallon of gas?
Unleaded or unleaded?
Oh, premium. What's your top grade?
$2.89.
Okay.
Less than $3.
Less than $3. So I think the last time I filled up, I was at maybe $4.10, and of course you can get it for cheaper or more.
Yeah.
But then again, July 1st, I think it's going up another 5 cents. But let's keep this positive and keep a good on everything.
I know. I mean, less than a year ago, we were I was pushing for that dollar sign. You know, we were trying to get as close to that dollar something as possible. So, I mean, where we're at right now is definitely not the lowest it's been in the last year or two. So we've seen much cheaper gas than where we're at now, but in retrospect, it's still not bad.
Let's back up real quick because we had another question about retirement communities. You mentioned another one, Robson Ranch. Can you give us just real quickly kind of where that's located and what that price range is, and what you get for the for the money?
Yeah, so we're gonna jump over to the maps here again, and I'll just type it in here to give people an idea of location. So if you zoom in as far as I have, you can see that this community is large. This
is that all golf course?
Yes, this is a golf course as well. It's got a clubhouse. The only downside, and you'll see once I zoom out further into this, this is this is growing still. They've got new construction. I mean, they're going to be growing here, and they've been growing here for quite some time. But the only downside to this, and I wouldn't even necessarily call it a downside, it's just really preference. The Frisco Del Webb community, like I said, is pretty close to a lot that's going on in Frisco. But if you zoom out,
oh, you're kind of remote.
So it's, again, if we zoom back in, this is Robson Ranch. You're right off 35, but there's, again, as I spoke earlier today, there's not a lot that's in this corridor here. Right now, the growth is probably at Roanoke. So this is Robson Ranch right here.
So how far is that going to be some more of the populated areas?
How far is it from them?
Yeah, like how far of a drive? If you wanted to get to,
I mean, you're still close. You're still close to Denton, and you're still close to. Once you hit Roanoke and Trophy Club here, and going down 114, you're going to have plenty of commercial. And once you go further south into Fort Worth, anything off of this 35 here, eventually is going to. I mean, everything off 35 is commercial. So you're still within 20 minutes drive of what you need to get to, but it is, not around the corner from everything, if that makes sense.
What price ranges are you looking at in that Robson Ranch?
So Robson Ranch actually has a much wider range in terms of prices. So your starter home in Robson Ranch is probably mid to high 200s. But you do have your luxury homes that are, upwards of close to $1 million. So you do have. So
you've got a pretty good range of basically whatever your tastes are and your budget is, right?
And the benefit of being out a little bit further with more land that the Del Webb community in Frisco doesn't have is if you were to approach them and say, hey, this is what I'm wanting to build. I do want to be in this community. That's something that you can definitely do out in Robson Ranch as well.
Oh, you can do a custom.
Yeah, so you have a little bit more flexibility out there.
Awesome. Tying into that, and this is a big question that we get, especially with a lot of people who are retiring or near retirement. Talk to us a little bit about the proximity of hospitals, healthcare service providers, and just general healthcare.
Yeah, so, and that's one of the large employers in the area as well as just healthcare. You're going to be, again, Frisco is really close to just about everything. Robson Ranch, you're going to be a little bit further out. But in terms of location, you've got hospitals that are all over, that are scattered all over Dallas and Fort Worth. And probably any given location, you're 20 to 25 minutes tops from a major hospital, which is nice with the area.
So 20 to 25 minutes, and I think that's one of the biggest questions is how far am I going to be if something comes up and I need services, right? So 20, 25 minutes.
I mean, if you go out to the country, I mean that's a different story. But I mean, you've got Baylor, you've got UT Southwestern, you've got Parkland. You have a large amount of large hospitals that are available for folks that need the quick commute.
So let's get into industry and employment a little bit, because right now, is what you mentioned before, we're seeing there are a lot of companies moving in. In fact, I was just reading this morning. Cushman & Wakefield, the commercial broker, analyzed 35 top metro areas between 2009 and 2018 with the jobs that they added. And Dallas was number one. Between 2009 and 2018, they added 750,000 jobs for a growth rate of over 25%. And they've also, since 2010, Dallas has added more than 130 new headquarters. That's unreal.
Yeah, and it all comes down to the cost of land here. You can get, I can't compare other parts of California, but you do have a lot of corporate, headquarters that are moving to not California, to Texas, because of the cost of land is just, so cheap. And you can, I don't know the average median income for an individual in San Francisco, but you can take a pay cut by moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and still live a much better life in terms of lifestyle, because of the cost of living and the just overall ability with all the corporate jobs that they have here. That there's just so much being brought here. There's a lot of other reasons too. That's, I can explain why I'm here.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I mean, the affordability is obviously huge for a lot of people who are looking for, for a job opportunity somewhere else. It's Texas, I believe, overall is a pretty friendly state from a business perspective. And to some of these, I mean, Uber's considering Dallas right now for one of their new locations. That would create several thousand jobs.
Yeah.
Charles Schwab, they've got a new corporate campus, 6,000 employees. McKesson obviously moved there from San Francisco. And then Core-Mark, which maybe people haven't heard of, they distribute fresh and frozen foods for convenience stores, moved from San Francisco. So there's obviously a lot of benefit to these companies, because that doesn't, that costs a lot of money, right? To move operations like that, to completely move your headquarters.
Yeah, and it's I don't run a massive corporate business, but it's all about overhead. Cost of maintaining their business where they are. When it comes down to numbers, what's going to make more sense? The overhead and cost of being in the Bay Area, or the overhead and cost of being in North Texas. And a lot of people are weighing those two options, or not necessarily. We have people that are corporate. PGA Golf is moving from Florida to the North Texas area. So it's not necessarily just California, but all parts of the country. Corporate jobs are being moved here, and headquarters are moved here. I mean, you have in terms of large corporate businesses in the area, I mean, American Airlines' headquarters is here. Allstate, I believe it was Allstate, moved their headquarters here. I mean, you've got Bank of America, TI, Texas Instruments, AT&T, Lockheed Martin. There's a bunch of different, employers here that, are just providing so much opportunity for people to live here, and yet still, I don't know the average rent in the Bay Area, but I mean, you can rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
So
let's Casey, let's jump over to a question we had earlier. Talk about the weather, seasons, climate, and then what people always want to know about is how bad is the humidity in Dallas compared to other major cities in Texas?
Yeah. So being from the Northwest and living in California, I'd never really experienced humidity. It was not something I looked forward to. I did have a grandparent that highly suggested I, think twice because of the humidity and all the other bugs and whatnot. I got scared, or he tried to scare me or tried to influence me. He didn't care.
He wants you to go, clearly.
Yeah, but he did have a decent amount of living in Texas, versus I think I'd visited once. I lived near Houston, about 45 minutes away from the north side of Houston. And then I lived in San Antonio. And then I also now live in Dallas. So to compare the three, Dallas is obviously the least humid. It's going to have still a good amount of rain. And what's different here from people, maybe if you've only lived on the West Coast, which is, what I had done, it's like hot rain. In Seattle, it's cold and it rains and it's miserable. Here, it rains and it's weird, because for me, when I moved here, it would be 85, 90 degrees and rain, which I had never experienced before.
Okay.
So it does rain. You'll get your, stormy season, which we're about to end here. For probably April, May, June timeframe, it's, periodically pretty heavy rain. But it's, it'll rain for 3 days and it'll, downpour for an hour or a couple hours and then stop. But overall, in terms of weather, obviously I'm a little biased and going to say that Dallas is better than the Houston or San Antonio area. But
here's the thing: you're not the first person to tell me that. I've always been told, even by people who are in that area, they'll say the closer you are to the Gulf, the worse it is. Houston being definitely the most humid.
Yeah, Houston. It wasn't. Being someone that had not been used to humidity, and I flew to Orlando a couple weeks back too. That was not enjoyable. I got outside and it was tough to breathe for me. So humidity is definitely not something I enjoy, but I do enjoy living in Dallas. There are going to be some days, especially after it storms, that it's more humid than not. But then there's other days where you don't get much humidity at all, and it's in the 90s, and it's nice to just go out on the lake and go boating, or go outside and enjoy your summer. But the nice thing is the weather stays relatively warm for a majority of the year. You do get your seasons though. You still get your winter. We get maybe hitting low 30s. So otherwise it's most of the time it's in the 40s or 50s in the middle of the winter. Do see maybe a little bit of snow. This past year we didn't see any. In the North Texas area. But weather for the most part is pretty nice down here.
If you wanted to find some snow, how far are you going to drive? Let's say if you're a skier.
Probably the best way is to jump on an airplane and just go up to Colorado real quick. But in terms,
it's going to be a little bit of a trek.
Yeah. In terms of driving, probably the Panhandle is going to be your closest area of Texas, I guess. That's going to be more snowy. But like I said, you'll get a little bit here, but if you do get a little bit here, everything shuts down. So
yeah.
But it's definitely not a commodity at all for snow coming down.
Awesome. Sounds pretty moderate, and that's what I've heard before, as far as Dallas is concerned. So you get the best of both worlds, a little bit of seasons, but not too extreme on each side of it.
Yeah, and Houston, San Antonio, I felt like I got less of a winter. Here you definitely, the winters are a little, colder. But even by saying colder, I grew up in an area that did get a bit of snow, and we've got sometimes in the negative. In the north, I'm sure they get really, really cold winters. Chicago was miserable this past winter. But our cold here is, maybe hitting freezing.
Yeah. Well, Casey, this is great. You've been, this has been some awesome information. Obviously, we've covered a whole lot in a short period of time. So if anybody has any specific questions, reach out to us, info@leavingthebayarea.com, and then we're happy to direct you over to Casey and, get some questions answered directly. If somebody wanted to come out, either have a conversation on the phone or maybe come out and just pay a visit with you to look around, because that's always the best way to do your, your research if you're serious about an area. Sounds like you're game for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Casey, hey, thanks again. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody, for being on the webinar today. We'll see you on the next episode, and take care.
Hey, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, bye.